And The Dish Run Away with the Moon Part 2 is the second episode of Season 8 of Frasier. This is directed by Pamela Fryman, and as always, there will be spoilers from now as I go through the episode chronologically and share some thoughts. I don't have a tremendous amount to say, but I do think the episode is brilliant. I think it was a really nice way to show a lot of different emotions, and also the final scene, well, I guess the penultimate scene, was an absolute joy, but we'll get there in a moment. It starts off with Niles, Frasier, and Daphne talking, and I love this bit. Frasier says that he's going to get them all a sherry, and he says Daphne, and she jumps up immediately reluctantly jumps up to go and fetch some things. But Frasier was just going to offer her a sherry, and there we have a change in dynamic. Yes, she's still Martin's healthcare worker, but now she's also Niles's partner. So the dynamic is shifting, and Frasier is perhaps realizing that he can't just ask her to go and do things for him all of the time. And I think that was a really interesting moment. And I think it's something that for us as viewers will take time getting used to. I've seen this before. I can't really remember when it started to feel different, but certainly for Daphne, it's going to take a bit of getting used to. And I thought that was a really, really lovely moment. And then it gets spoiled a bit because Niles, as he has to, tells Daphne that their date that evening is going to have to be postponed because he has to have a date with Mel because it's their wedding reception. And we cut to the wedding reception, and I'm really glad they kept this to one scene. They didn't drag it out for too long, and it was very well executed. Roz is there, which did feel a bit random, but at the same time, Roz is in every episode, so I guess it was a reasonable enough way for her to be there. And Niles has to kiss Mel for a photograph, which obviously makes sense. It's their wedding reception, but we know more than the guests, and it is a bit awkward. And Mel confronts Frasier, and apparently Donnie had spoken with Mel and basically told her everything that Frasier did to play a part in this disaster, as it is from Mel's perspective. And she makes Frasier make a toast. And it was very clever. I think it was beautifully written, and it was actually really moving as well. Because up until this point, I feel like, understandably, there has been some guilt around Niles and Daphne, and it almost feels wrong or awkward to celebrate that. And I think I mentioned this, I don't know if I mentioned this in the previous episode. No, it would have been, yes, it would have been the previous episode when I mentioned it, that as viewers, we really, really want to celebrate this thing that we have been waiting for so long, but also, Donnie's just been left at the altar. Mel, well, she just married Niles, and that's over within 3 days. So we kind of have to acknowledge that and realize that, yes, it's wonderful that Daphne and Niles are together, but because of their decisions, and I guess because of Frasier's meddling, people are hurting. But Frasier delivered this beautiful speech about how Niles had found the love of his life, and he was so happy with the girl he'd chosen. Of course, never once mentioning Mel by name. So we know that it's about Daphne. Mel knew it was about Daphne, and I thought it was just a really nice moment where we could finally celebrate Niles and Daphne, and as Frasier said, raise a glass in toasting my brother and the love of his life. And it was just a lovely moment. And Mel then tells Niles that until they're divorced, he can't be seen in public with Daphne, and then she crams some cake in his face. The cake looked delicious, a lot of icing, and I feel like that's taking it a step too far. I kind of understand Mel needing Niles to play the part of the husband for a little bit longer. I think that's the least Niles could do after what he did. But saying he can't be seen with Daphne, maybe saying you can't be seen in public kissing her or being romantic with her, but there's no reason why he can't be seen in public with her, because she's still technically a member of the family by this point. So as long as it wasn't romantic, I think it would have been fine for them to be in public together. So I think there, Mel was being unreasonable. And understandably, Daphne is very annoyed. But when she finds out, she does take it out on Niles. She's almost starting to, well, she says she's starting to regret calling off the wedding and going through with this. And then Niles and Frasier are shouting at each other, and Frasier declares he will never meddle again. He will never interfere with anything like this again. Which is not the worst statement. I don't think that was a bad decision, but everybody's mad at each other for the wrong reasons, or maybe they shouldn't be mad at each other at all. I was almost going to say they should be mad at Donnie and Mel. I think they should be mad at Donnie for trying to sue. I think that's ridiculous. They should be mad at Mel for saying Niles can't be seen in public with Daphne, but again, they are both right to be hurt. it is acceptable that Donnie and Mel are hurting and angered, and I don't completely disagree with some of their actions. Well, Donnie's actions I completely disagree with, but Mel's not so much. But again, it's just anger being projected onto the wrong people. And Daphne obviously realizes this because quite quickly she apologizes to Frasier and they have a lovely emotional moment. And that moment is, I'd say, a little more affectionate than what we would usually get between Frasier and Daphne. They have had nice moments in the past, but again, it starts to feel more like their family rather than Frasier and his father's healthcare worker. And I thought it was a really lovely moment. And he offers to take Daphne out for dinner since he could be seen with her in public. Initially, she was going to say no, but then Simon comes in with Eddie, and I have to say, Simon's dialogue there, I really liked the way he was talking about Eddie. I thought it was very nice. It's unusual that I will like anything Simon says, but Simon says, I amuse myself. Anything that Simon says, but in that moment, I really liked it. And Daphne realizes she doesn't want to spend an evening with Simon. So she agrees to go out with Frasier. And then it seemed a bit abrupt. We then cut to Niles and Martin going up in the elevator, and I feel like something was missing there. I don't know what, but it just felt a little abrupt. But up they go, and we're on the roof of the building, and Daphne is there and getting quite emotional. They've created this romantic evening for Niles and Daphne. They can have their romantic meal together. That being said, if they're going to do it on the roof, why didn't they just do it in the apartment? Because I feel like it would be warmer inside and more comfortable. But I guess giving them a different setting to be alone, it was really nice. And we end with them dancing together, and it was just beautiful. And in that moment, nothing mattered. Donnie, Mel, none of it was important. It was so lovely. And then we have the final scene with Simon going up to the roof and gathering up all of the scraps of food. It was fine. I didn't mind the ending. So it's a nice episode. And I feel like the pacing was very good. I like the fact that we didn't spend too much time at the wedding reception, but I liked being there because it gave us that chance for Frasier to finally be able to raise a glass to Niles and Daphne. It was a lovely moment, and it was nice to see Eddie as well. And in general, it's a solid episode. I don't have too many thoughts beyond that. I think we can sum up by saying it's a good episode. We're finally being encouraged to enjoy Niles and Daphne while still having to be reminded of the fact that Donnie and Mel exist, which I don't disagree with. I don't think that's a bad thing. I think it makes sense. And we definitely as well see the shift in dynamic with how Daphne is being treated, and I think it will take her, well, it will take her some time to get used to that, and for us as viewers to get used to it as well. All things considered, and The Dish Ran Away with the Spoon Part 2 is definitely a decent episode of Frasier.